coming off a win, and obviously moves up into a higher condition. I feel like if she runs this race, she has a very good chance to repeat. The question is, how confident are she's going to run this race? And I feel like there is other pace pressure in here with Jolly Miss Jill in the race. And I feel like last time was the time for her.
I agree that she's going to have to deal with other speed in here, and having that jump up where she has the 65 by her speed figure winning on the front end, whereas the rest of her races aren't that type of number. It's not generally the type of horse I'd gravitate towards, but that was also her first time stretching out on the dirt ever. So I think that that had something to do with it. And we did see one of the horses that projected to be forward in this race come out and obstinate.
Right. I don't disagree, but I think the horse she really had to worry about was Jolly Miss Jill, who's clearly going to be forward in here. And, you can say, okay, it was a stretch out. My general feeling a lot of times is these horses, they run their best races stretching out. Now, hey, she's a good bookend with your first race pick because she comes from a turf family, at least on the dam side. As Barrel of Dreams is really a nice turf horse. Central Banker, obviously not as good an influence, and she's tried the turf and run
She's
poorly.
got a little more dirt for him.
She can win here. I have nothing against her whatsoever. I don't like to pick entries. I don't like Jolly Miss Jill at all in this race. I mean, I guess she has an outside chance. I just think Halo City is taking a real drop here to the bottom. And I like horses that take the drop to the bottom because there's such a huge difference between hovering over it. And she's also been running in open races. I just feel like you have a horse moving up from a non-winners of 3 lifetime into an open race. Halo City's running against better, and I thought she was the horse to beat in here.
Yeah.
But no great shakes, the entry. She is the favorite morning line. Race number 3, I'm sorry to see Patricia Ann came out of this race. But we'll talk about weigh the risk to start out, a horse we both picked, and I'll let you talk about it as we show the replay of her last race.
Yeah, I guess even Chad Brown can be wrong about what surface a horse prefers. She's really taken to returning to the dirt. And while she ran that blowout 96 by her speed figure performance, winning by open lengths, she came back and ran a race that was still very respectable and fits nicely with this group to earn that 88 winning last time out. And I like that she took a little bit more of a challenge and had to dig in and have that resilience more so than just winning comfortably and easily by such a great margin. At least she was able to shrug off some sort of challenge in this race. So I thought that from a performance standpoint and overcoming something, that was helpful for her as well. And she just has the races at a mile on the dirt that are more consistently fast than others.
Yeah, the question with a number of these horses, but I think specifically with her, is Lasix. A question of how much she needs Lasix. And I'm going to be interested to see how it affects her because she may be a horse that doesn't run without Lasix. Now, you could say the same thing for Kids Last Laugh, and we'll show her finishing second to Patricia Ann, who is clearly on paper the other horse, especially with Patricia Ann coming out, unless you want to take the turf horse, and we'll talk about her in a moment. But coming off Lasix is a bit of a concern, and I think it's a bigger concern for Weigh the Risks. That worries me. I would never single her. I would use a horse who's improving for Rick Dutrow. I think Weigh the Risks is the better horse. I'm just not 100% confident she'll be the better horse without Lasix.
That's a fair point. I think with Kids Last Laugh, you could make the argument that she might not successfully do this at the mile distance, as she has been going a little bit shorter, but there's no evidence to suggest that she's not just an improved horse over her last 2 starts, so I wouldn't hold that against her by any means. And it was a merry-go-round type of race last time where nobody really made up any ground, so I don't hold it against her as much that she didn't go by Patricia Ann, who has
pretty
talent.
good also, so it's not like she lost to a bad horse. Aussie Girl is not a horse I would ever take in this race. Obviously, it's interesting she ships in, but I mean, she does not have a pedigree that says dirt at all.
No.
On the other hand, she is a horse that should be forward in this race.
Yeah, we'll see. This is just not the type of horse that I have any interest in including on tickets or betting, but she's an interesting player, and I'm curious to see what we get from her.
Yeah, and I also think drawing outside, with the only real speed inside of her being Bernie Takes Charge, it allows her to stay out of kickback, which is something I think kickback has become one of the most overused and overexcused thing in racing. But when horses try the dirt for the first time that are turf horses, the kickback could be an issue because they have no familiarity with it. We'll see what she does. Race number 4, which will not start the pick 6 today, as we have a 10-race card. Let's talk about Focus Pocus, who I have on top, and you have second here. And we'll go back to the win. I don't have a lot of love for this horse. I was 4-5 or 5-4. I didn't know which way to go, but boy, she is loose in here, and I'm just not trying to beat her, especially with a 6 coming out. She gets even more of a break up front, and I do feel like she's a horse with Romero that could bottom the field out. I don't know what you thought of yesterday's track, but in another day could change things dramatically. It's warming up a little bit, thankfully. But I do think there's an argument the rail and speed were at least a real advantage yesterday, not
I agree.
some supersonic bias, but I think it was an
It was
advantage
definitely
in yesterday's
helpful.
track.
Uh,
And she could be clear, and I'm just not going to try to catch her.
Yeah, she's the speed. She's absolutely going to be in front in this spot. I just wonder, are we ever going to see a performance kind of like the one where she won that race? I know she was facing tougher in her last 2 starts, so plenty of excuses there, but I just don't know that she's really a 65 to 70 type of horse in this field.
Except when you look at her, the 2 good races that she's run have been when she's gotten loose in the lead. So she may be a horse that's just better if she can get loose in the lead. And unless she gets left here, she's supposed to be in front. What is the story with Blenheim Baby?
I like that on the return she's not dropping in class, and while she was 4th, beaten 2 lengths with a 60 by her speed figure last time out, and well beaten 2nd prior to that, that was against much better horses. And I thought that she was the one that would be forwardly placed enough to have any sort of opportunity to go by a horse like Focus Pocus. And if she comes in fresh and has a little bit more of that edge, of that speed to her, she could have a little bit more of a chance than any of the other horses that I wanted to take. And she just doesn't have the recency as others. But looking around at the rest of the field, I didn't want to take a horse coming off the long layoff like To Be Loved by You, and then I just didn't really want anybody else that much.
I'm going to get into stats in a second. So this is part of the theory that when they're not using the waiver, it's a positive?
It's not about the waiver, it's about not dropping in class.
Okay, but you don't think it's you didn't factor at all in the fact that she's not using the waiver for a horse that's coming off an 8-month layoff. That
Okay.
didn't come into play at all for you.
I didn't think about it, no.
Okay, because I think there's a general feeling that some people think that not using the waiver is more positive than the waiver. I don't have an opinion on it. I just heard it. For what it's worth, Linda Rice, 6 to 12-month layoffs in dirt routes. She's 4 for 35 with a $1.15 ROI. At all distances, she's 15 for 113, 13% and a $1.21 ROI. Her numbers off layoffs aren't good. It's interesting you mentioned To Be Loved by You, and we'll take a look at her last race, which was quite a long time ago at 14 months. 250 plus layoffs in the dirt. Rudy Rodriguez is 8 for 32, 25% with a $1.68 ROI. And in routes, he's 2 for 6 with 3 hitting the board at a $2.15 ROI. It's a small sample. But it is interesting that Rudy, if somebody said to me, who do you think has better numbers off reasonably long layoffs, Rudy or Linda, I would say Linda. Linda has much better numbers than Rudy has. Rudy's been winning at around a 10 or 11% clip over the last 2+ seasons.
Yeah.
So I was surprised by these numbers, and that's why I moved this horse up more than the 3. It just seemed like the stats said that this horse would run back. And I know it was a muddy track last time. This horse ran okay last time.
Yeah, I agree.
Pretty good field. Look what this horse beat.
I know. I mean, and the stat that I looked up for him was just 1 to 2 years, and with that, he's 2 for 7 with a $2.24 ROI. So, I mean, he does well with horses coming off a layoff like this, small sample size or not. I just sort of wonder, was the horse improving because she was stretching out in distance? Was it the wet track? Because her prior 2 races were not good before that one where she did win.
I don't disagree, and I think that's a very, very valid point. Listen, but there are a number of horses out of that race that came back and ran pretty well, not just Music. We'll see what happens. An interesting race, race number 4. Race number 5 kicks off the pick 6. I tell you what, Eddie, you were on top of that. I didn't even say anything. $15,931. Big day for you, Eddie, really. Big, big day, other than that cross-country pick 5. But we'll try to put that behind us. There were a couple of serious scratches in this race. The horse that has the standout buyer figure in its last start, Conniving, came out. And King of the Gods, who was part of that discussion about coming off the layoff, not using the waiver. Now they can't use a waiver for dropping. They could have run for 25. And this was the catalyst for a conversation I had with our friend David Aragona the other day. That's why I was thinking about it. This is a very, very, very tricky race. And for me, I probably should have gone 4-1-6, because I'll tell you something. The more I looked at Mr. Mendelssohn, the less I liked him.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I had a lot of interest in the 2 horses towards the outside. They're not playing, and then Boss 302 just becomes the very logical horse, dropping insurmountably in class.
And he's supposed to be forward in this race, and I think it would behoove them. Now, my problem with him is with the scratches, he's going to be a super short price. I don't think either one of us are dying to bet on him
No,
in
he's-
here.
he's not
Having
exactly a
said
standout.
that, I don't trust this horse at all. But I mean, I don't know if we can trust. Sounds like
Something I do.
someone I do. With the return of Fernando Hara, who has not been here in quite a while.
And look at the horse he lost to last time. I mean, these are not exactly ground-shaking types that
They
he
got a
was
big
facing.
figure.
Yeah, I agree with that. But then we haven't seen this horse in a while, and I know that you're one that if they have a good race, you don't like to see them then go to the bench following that good effort and then come back and wonder whether or not they're going to repeat it.
Now
Going off.
he uses the waiver. So by the waiver rule theory, and I'm not just outing it. If even if I don't agree with something, if David Aragona says to me, I listen to it. For what it's worth, they're sort of neutral numbers for Rob Falcone. He's 3 for 18 off 250-day plus layoffs in the dirt, with 8 hitting the board and a $1.51 ROI. So they're very neutral numbers. They're a little worse than the takeout. It's a small sample size. If it was 4 for 18, it'd be a positive ROI. So it's, I don't think that that's a big issue. And in a race where the more I look, the less I like Mr. Mendelssohn, who can win, obviously, the more
Where
I
is
think
there
the
to
one is
go?
dangerous, because there's a chance the 4 just is no good.
I think that that's very possible, and we're seeing him not just drop in for a tag, but drop very much so
Oh,
from where he
they're
was.
done. They're
Yeah.
moving on.
And to come back on short rest as well, this is a clear sign that they want to get rid of this horse and move on.
Yeah, I looked up Rick Dutrow, allowance to claimer in the dirt, 5 for 20 since coming back, 12 hitting the board, $1.50 ROI. Once again, very neutral stats, not positive, not particularly negative. For you, it's harder. You scratched into him. I actually had him on top in here. Would I have bet him if he was a better price with the other horse in there? Maybe.
Potentially.
I'm not taking him at 6 to 5 in this race, but
Right.
I'm also not going to pick against
Then,
him.
then I will say just quickly, the 2
Yeah, go
has
ahead.
not run a step, but this is his first time getting on a dry main track. So at least something is changing.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. Those sons of Freud, known to want dry dirt tracks. We'll see what happens. Late pick 5 after a quick break.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Sarah Albadwi and Andy Serling. Race number 6 of our 10-race card. They're going a mile, and let's take a look at Frizzante getting disqualified. This was a very, very legitimate, to me, a no-brainer DQ, and I was glad. Honestly, I wasn't involved, but I was, one where they're really looking more at herding, and this horse really took the other horse out of the race. And it felt like Kendrick almost took a shot, like, the only way I'm going to win is if I herd this other horse. And, hey, sometimes you get away with it, so I'll take my chances. I can't knock him for that. But I think that the stewards have been cracking down more on herding, which I appreciate. But I also thought he ran very well because
He
this
did.
race collapsed. I like him cutting back to a mile. I know he's a moto pick, but I also think he's the horse to beat. I'm
I
not picking
agree.
against
I
him.
mean, he ran very well within the context of the dynamics of that race, and the horse that ended up being elevated over him got the right kind of trip and setup to go pie him. So I think that it is that sort of catch-22 with Kendrick Carmouche deciding this horse is tiring. I need to do something and make sure that I can give him the best chance to win. And ultimately, it didn't work out, and he was found at fault for it.
Well, it did
but
work out. He finished first. It just didn't work out. And by the way,
Ultimately.
our thoughts with Kendrick, who is, if you're wondering why he's not riding, his grandmother passed away, and he went down to New Orleans yesterday. So our thoughts with Kendrick and his family as well. So what did I miss about Holton? Not that he can't win. He's 3-1 second choice.
I don't know. I just think if looking for someone else, he's the one that makes some sense and ran well in his last start. I thought finishing second. I thought that he showed a little bit more forward position than he had. And if you take out his sloppy sealed track or his wet track efforts, except for that one race at 7 furlongs, his races over a fast main track, they are a little bit better than what we have seen from him over a track with some moisture in it. And I think that those are races that do contend with the rest of this field, especially last time, the start prior to that, even though it was for maiden 40, and even going back to a race at Saratoga that he ran behind Treaty Obligation. Those are numbers that fit well within this group.
He was with Brad Cox when he ran those numbers. We'll listen. He can win. We'll agree to disagree on him. I didn't think he ran well at all last time. I don't think he was any closer than he normally is in races. I mean, look at his race 3 back. I think your point about the dry tracks is an extremely fair point. I thought he just kind of sucked up, to be honest, in there for getting second. Not that he ran badly, but I didn't think he ran that well. Do you think he really ran that much better than Scat to Tap, who you don't even have in the top 4, and he finished just ahead of him?
He's going to be in front of a horse like Scat to Tap, I imagine, with how this race plays out.
Yeah, I know. He's a forward horse in a paceless race. And I think that's one of the questions here. It's a paceless race, and any of the 2, 3, and 5 can be forward. Now, the guy most likely to take advantage could be Manny, who's aggressive. Could also be Traffic Master. I think if the morning line holds up, I would rather bet Traffic Master than Holton at twice the price. Because he does have some races, and I'm always scared of Jamie Ness horses. He comes out of a race where Speed ran 1-2 around the racetrack. It wasn't a speed track, but he was sort of against the flow of the race, and I just thought he was a dangerous horse. He didn't run that badly in the Frisante race because he was right on top of the pace. I would prefer him. I don't know that he'll be twice the price of Holton. If he is, maybe I end up betting Traffic Master. I was going to use 3 and 5 to start the pick 5.
All right.
We'll see what happens in race number 6. Race number 7. Let's start with Gridlock, the number 2, who I picked in here, and we'll look at the race at Keeneland. Now, obviously, there is a real question. This horse was claimed away from Saffie Joseph and then comes here and sucks. So maybe there's a problem. On the other hand, I thought the rail was pretty good last time. This horse got off the rail, was 3 to 5 wide. I kind of want to give her enough of an excuse. She still ran a 63 buyer, which still makes her good enough to win this race, and
Right.
she was probably against the track.
And it's a
She's-
much better group.
Yeah, she's not going to be a price. I mean, you've lost Bedtime Story, who probably would have taken some money
Yep.
in here. But I guess for me, I hate the horse that you have on top.
You do?
I had her scratching into her from second. I picked the race 2-7-3-9.
Yeah, I picked the 7 on top. But
Right. So, and I moved her to third because I just thought her loss last time was one of the most inexcusable losses of the entire winter. I mean, she found a 4-horse field. She's just walking on the front end. And I know our funny business got a good trip to beat her. Come on.
I agree. She was
That's-
bad last time,
yeah.
and she should have won that race. I agree with that completely. But she is moving to a new barn, and
She could win, I know.
Ilkai is doing very well with the horses he's claiming.
Yes.
He's 4 for 19 since he went out of his own with a $2.67 ROI, and she is the speed towards the outside in this race. So I don't know. I'm hoping that she can kind of seal the deal a little bit more than she did last time with a couple more horses in here, because outside of those 2, there just aren't a lot of other directions to go
Shouldn't
in this race.
Gridlock be in front of her, though? I mean, they got a rider out of there. Not that matters, but
Could
yeah.
be.
Listen, she can win. This is a race that, with the scratches, is devoid of a lot of form in here, and I'm not going to sit here and defend like a Rolling Stone. I mean, other than it being Jamie Ness, she's a slowpoke. And you're right about the 9 game, the trainer change, and I don't disagree with that, but. And I just thought her last race was. I mean, if we
If
gave
she
an
wasn't
award,
changing barns, I wouldn't like her at all.
Right. If we gave an award for the most inexcusable loss of this meet, she
up
probably
there.
would be in that conversation. That was pretty pathetic last time. But you're right. She can win here. She drew well on the outside, and I agree. LK's horses are running extremely well. And he offered to give me a ride home the other day. I said, I don't think you want to
Oh yeah.
drive.
He said that he's a big fan of the Stewards review.
Of the what?
Stewards review.
good.
That we
Stewards
did.
review is
Yeah,
awesome.
It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I won't. Well, we wouldn't do one tomorrow unless it's an inquiry today. Maybe we'll move it to Thursday if there is one, because I'm not here
Yeah.
tomorrow.
That's a good program.
Race number, it is great, and it's great that Victor that Victor's so into doing it, and I
Yeah.
think it's been a tremendous opportunity for people. And it's also nice to hear the thought process. And I think when you hear Victor, we're talking about the Stewards review we do every week when we have inquiries, mostly when there are takedowns, sometimes when there aren't, with Victor Escobar, our steward. And I think when you hear Victor talk about them, even if you disagree with his decision, he does a good job of explaining to you why you might be wrong and giving his side of the story. And I think it's
Yeah.
not only having him explain it, but knowing there's somebody that thoughtful in the steward's booth is to me is really a positive. Race number
Exactly.
8, I think, is an absolutely terrific race, and I think we have to start with Berry Funny, who I have third and you have fourth, and I do understand your reticence with him. I feel like I never ever want to bet against a horse off the claim for Bill Morey after this horse ran an 88 buyer last time off the claim, and even if it's a little high, it's not that high.
This was
And
quite the feat.
I didn't have him on my bingo card as a horse that was ever going to win 3 straight races
No.
because he was the chandelier of chandeliers.
He used to be so bad and unreliable, and
He was
I will
reliable.
say,
He hung every time.
I will say, over his last 3 races, he has taken a step forward in each of them. But last time, that's a big step forward.
I agree, and I don't want to let him beat me. These are obviously better horses. You probably are right to just completely go against him in here.
You can't ignore the last race completely, though. That's
I'm
the
not.
thing.
I'm not being overly dismissive of Bill Morey. His horses run too well for me to ignore them in general. It doesn't mean the horse is going to win. I certainly wouldn't bet him to win. What do you want to tell me about Trust Fund?
I think that he just had a complete line through the last race where he did stumble a little bit at the start and just never really had position. And I think that that was one of those days where there wasn't any sort of extreme bias, but I think the horses that were inside and forward were helped, and it was an advantage to them. And
Well, he was inside.
he was, but at the same time, he was just taken out of his game early on and coming off of that lengthy layoff as well. So I thought that he wasn't totally impossible to improve off his 2-year-old form as of yet with that last start, and I wanted to just give him another chance.
He's 3-1 morning line, though. He's the morning line second choice.
Well, Barry
And
Funny is your morning line favorite, so.
Right, but did you think the stumble was that bad? I mean, maybe it got to cost him a length. I don't know. Did you
I think
really?
he just never got into position, and maybe that was a function of thinking, all right, he's been off for a long time. Maybe this isn't going to be his race anyway.
Okay.
That's just a guess.
He
I
is
don't know.
Second off a long layoff. I could never bet him at a short price if he was 6 or 8-1. But listen, I get it. There are some. See, the horse that I don't like. We're going to look at Brachiol and Nunzio.
Brajoul.
Excuse me, Brajoul. Right. Thinks Stabile's not here.
Yeah,
He'd be in tears.
Gotta brush up on your Italian
He's
dishes.
another one, Brajoul, who's really improved. Now, in showing the start of the race, reason I showed it was Nunzio's the gray. What happened to him?
Why is
I
he not
mean,
showing any speed at all?
Kendrick is asking him from the start. That's why I wanted to show it. He asked him from the start. It's not like Kendrick took a hold of him and said, let's just rate him today. And he makes this middle move. Okay, he makes the wide middle move. And then he doesn't even finish. I thought that this was a terrible performance. Now, to be fair, speed was good this day, so he's a little against the track. But still, where was his speed? It just makes me think with Nunzio, I wonder if he's just kind of losing his form. And he is a horse that's been in a number of races where he felt like he was a real player, and he's just kind of been disappointing.
And I think that if we had not seen the rider really ask him for that speed, then I'd start making the excuse of, okay,
They tried to rate.
everybody thinks that there's going to be speed in this race, and they've all decided to change their tactics, and then you see this horse get loose on the lead, who probably was the least likely candidate of a couple to be the one that was forwardly placed. But the fact that he was asked for that speed and didn't offer it, that's kind of a red flag to me.
And, you know, I bet him 2 back. And, okay, Rock the Weekend ran well in there to beat him. I thought he kind of stunk in there. He offered absolutely no resistance whatsoever. And it's not like he was coming off a layoff. He's off for 2 months. I just feel like he's a horse that's run okay, but he has been unable to build on his win. And his last race really badly turned me off. Once again, I got him third. I'm not wildly against him in here. I didn't trust him. That's where I sort of got the one. I don't trust Nunzio. I hear you with Trust Fund. I don't really like him, but I do think you make valid points about him. Brajoul is obviously improved, and I don't think he's impossible, but like you, he's not a horse that I want to have in a primary position here. And I looked at Warolo, who, went to the lead last time on a fair track in a bad 4-horse field, but he lost to the heavy favorite that day. He is a horse that has back races that could smoke this field. Now, to be fair, Both of them are muddy sealed tracks. So he may be a horse that's better with moisture in the track, but he's also got other races that are good enough to compete. And I just thought, from the rail, maybe he goes today with Ruben and he catches a bunch of horses that are either not in great form or a little dressed up. So I took him at a little bit better price.
Yeah, this is a tough field. I
This-
mean, you could make a
it's
case
competitive
for
race.
several.
No, I agree. This is a competitive race. I think it's an interesting race. And I think all of us, you've taken a big position against the 3, which is fine. I'm not as far against him, but I do think he's a very big key to this race because he's got to be favored off
You have
his
to
last
make a
race.
choice about what you
No,
think of him.
yeah, you've made more of a choice than me. I was a little wishy-washy with him. You've made a decision. That's fine. I don't listen. I don't
And I
knock
could be
that.
wrong, but
right, but
this
you've
is
made a
this
decision.
is
That's
different
fine.
horses.
Race number 9 is an excellent race going a flat mile. I want to start with Emirates Road, cutting back to a mile and 1/8. And I know he kind of should have won last time in that 3-horse field where Black Rain was eased. Having said that, I do think he's better to mile. The only thing I'll say is, after being absolutely on fire and virtually unbeatable, the regression of the mean has happened with the Cox Barn, where their horses just aren't running as well now. And I wonder if they were really geared up to run well and they've just sort of taken a small step back. If he runs his good race, he's a huge player in here.
He is. I mean, he was showing a lot of good consistent form at that mile and running well since he switched back to the dirt and gradually stepping up in class successfully as well. And I know that he was a big favorite. He was supposed to get the job done last time, but the dynamics are just so different in those short fields. So I don't want to completely dismiss that it was just a function of how the race played out. A little bit against him more so than...
And Peak ran.
Yeah.
I agree. And that's also a mile and 1/8 to a mile. I think he's a logical horse, but like you, he's not one I wanted to pick on top. Now, as far as Liberty to Bayou, I think he's very dangerous as well. But the time to have him was 2 back. And his
Yes.
win last time we can show his win last time. That was a cue. Is a little phony. You know what I mean? It was a weird race. The other horse taking money, Castle Island, didn't run a step in here. And I feel like he doesn't have any upside.
No.
And I don't think he's going to come back and run a 95 Byron here. If he does, he's going to win,
Right.
but he's also going to beat me.
Well, and also if you look at the field that he was defeating in that last race versus the one that he's going to be facing in here, this is a very different group of horses than he was able to have that open length win with a high buyer speed figure over. And while he has faced some okay horses in the past for sure and not run disgracefully, that big win was for a lesser level than he's going to be running against here.
I'll say something else about him. He was winning starters. He wasn't winning a non-winners of 1, which is what we're dealing with here. He was winning starters. And Linda went from that starter and dropped him in for 35. She knew she was going to lose him. I don't know how many
yeah.
claims were in with him, but I'm guessing that Jamie wasn't the only one that went in. And I don't think there are too many people in the game that are shrewder than Linda Rice. Maybe she's in my top of my list of shrewd, smart trainers I've ever known. She is incredibly plugged in and smart. She wanted to lose this horse. And when Linda wants to lose a horse, it makes me
Probably for a
wonder
reason.
if the horse will run as well. Now, you've got the horse completely thrown out. I'm not totally against him. What am I missing with Colloquy?
I'll get into him in a second, but I just want to say about Linda, the main thing that I've noticed being out in the paddock is that she is just a machine. She is constantly looking at every single angle of possible horses that she might want to claim next, very involved with everything. Watching her work is really a sight to behold.
She's impressive.
It's
She
the
wins.
main thing
She
that I
wins
have
for a
noticed
reason.
out there.
She doesn't
Yeah.
win by accident, and it annoys me when people say things because she wins because she's extremely smart. She takes advantage. If there's an opportunity, Linda is there to jump in on it. She's opportunistic in that way, but that's what you've got to be in this game.
Yeah,
Go
absolutely.
ahead with
But with
Colloquy.
Colloquy, I mean, looking at his races outside of the Alex M. Robb, where he has been able to run on Lasix, there, except for the one where he lost, he was declared a non-starter, they're competitive enough to be successful here. And he did have that race over Sloppy Sealed Track, where he did win over Mighty Atlas and Bourbon Chase. And then last time, Lock and Key came from off the pace, but Cut the Cord was right on top of it, and Colloquy was able to make up some ground to run that same 89 buyer speed figure against a level like this. So I think that while the Timeform US pace projector doesn't have this as necessarily a fast pace, with a couple of horses stretching out and ones that have run better being forward, and with whatever Shadow Dragon may or may not do, with him showing a lot of speed last time that just he had never really shown before, I thought that he would have enough pace to be able to run his race.
Yeah. Listen, he obviously can win, and the points are valid, except I completely disagree about the pace. This horse is slow. And frankly, it concerns me that he's picking up a rider that hasn't ridden here for a while, not as good as some of the riders around here in a race that lacks pace. This is a horse that might just get completely lost in here. That's what worried me about him. I don't disagree with you. Your points are valid. He's
It's
run
possible.
fast races. His last race was good. I agree with you. Lock and Key closed, but the other horse was Speed. I don't love the Lock and Key. Ran poorly here last week in his subsequent start. That bothered me a little bit, but I'm not going to argue with you. The Tosshead start, that's not what happened. He broke a length slow and the door closed.
Yeah.
As it has happens, he was slow. But, you know, when a horse like that breaks slow, it matters less because he's going to be back anyway. Your points are very valid. I worry, though, that he's going to be a victim of pace, especially because
need some.
he's got horses like the 1, the 5, the 10 are all considerably faster than him early, and they're all major contenders in this race. So it's not like the Speeds aren't horses that can win.
No,
that's
it's
that's what
logical
worries me
speed
about
rather
him.
than
As far as Bourbon Chase, my feeling, I'm looking at his last race. Why did he run so badly last time? I just wonder if he's a horse that really needs to be out in the clear. He does his best running when he's outside in the clear. And while I'm not saying he was, right down on the inside last time, he was inside of horses at times, taking some dirt. And he seems to be a sort of a quirky horse. But when he runs his good races, he's got a lot of consistency in his figs. And I figure he'll be outside in a good stalking spot. I've become a fan of Lane Luzzy, who I think, really is attuned to the racetracks and rides well. And I just thought he'd be in a good spot. And he's 6-1 morning line, much like you taking Colloquy. But at least with him, he's going to be closer.
he is. And I think last time, too, he wasn't as close as we usually see from him. And maybe he is that horse that just doesn't want to engage if he's not going to have as much forward position because we don't see him as far back as he was by the half as he was last time.
I think he's a bit of a chicken. He doesn't love a wet track. I think he's just a horse that wants things sort of his own way, and getting an outside stalking post increases the likelihood that he's going to get that kind of trip. That was it. This is a terrific race. I respect your pick. I think that horse is dangerous.
And
It
neither of
worries
us
me about the pace.
even have good money who's returning.
Yeah,
second off the list as well.
we got a second. By the way,
Yeah.
post time today is 12:45. If you're wondering why, it's because the Saudi Cup's going off at 12:40, and we knew people would want to watch the first much more than the Saudi Cup. So, out of respect, we've decided to allow them to run. I'm
So
kidding.
kind.
What do you think of Good Money? Talk about him.
I think that he should have probably won last time. I think that if he is going to be a factor in this race, he's likely to have
You mean he
speed.
should have won, or he was unlucky to lose?
I think that he should have won.
Well, he didn't get a very good ride. I mean,
No.
which is Tampa, so getting a good ride is almost
It's
an
very difficult to
impossibility there.
find.
I've been impressed by Samuel Marin down there. I think
Yeah.
he's the best rider
Yeah,
there.
he's been riding very well
I
there.
really like him as a rider down there. But having said all that, I mean, he broke a little slow, but he just got completely shuffled out of position on the turn. The problem is his good race is phony.
And it's also up and close on the lead, and I don't see him being fast enough to attain that position
No,
in here.
he was close because they were absolutely walking, and that Tampa Bay Derby was like one of these turf marathons where you couldn't really close, and that's one of the reasons I kind of like domestic product out of it, which ultimately proved to be correct because he was forced to be on top of a moderate pace, and the fact that he could still get it done. I just don't know if he's any good, and
Yeah.
he's 5-1 morning line because it's Chad Brown.
Exactly.
And
Because he ran in some graded stakes against some good horses, and he's second off the layoff, and just everything to be overbet in a spot like this
Yeah.
where there's good horses with proven form.
yeah, I agree. He feels like, and he's not impossible. He's lightly raced, who knows? But I don't know. It's just he's got a phony figure last year that's not even comparable to these. Sure, he could improve, but
Yeah.
bad ride or not, I didn't see it last time, though it was a wet track. Race number 10, a lot of firsters in here, a lot going on. Let's take a look at Sassy Shenanigans, isn't this horse just a week, the horse to beat?
Absolutely. As far as the horses with experience, 100%. I mean, coming off of some time away, but any sort of replication or building upon this 2-year-old form where she showed good speed, she was professional, lost to Carmen's Candy Jar, who isn't a world beater, but who had some races after that that showed that she had some.
I don't think she ever improved. That's the thing about her. She kind of ran the same figure her whole career. The one thing that bothers me about Sassy Shenanigans is the rail was very good that day.
It was.
And she was very much with the racetrack and the flow. But she ran a 67
She also
Beyer.
had the speed.
You know, 8 months ago. So
Right.
there's no reason that 67 can't literally be an 80. And even if you say, okay, we'll take 6 points off of it because it was the rail or something, you're still in the low 70s. Do we really think this race is going to get an 80? Maybe
Well,
it
she's
will. But
still by and far away the fastest of the horses with experiences based on that last race, even if you take off 10 buyer speed figure points from that last performance. So,
a lot of pedigree for your horse on the rail.
Yeah.
For our man Dave Donk.
The works are impressive to me. This horse has worked fast on multiple occasions, consistently doing so, and I'm just inclined
Fast
to believe
being a relative term.
fast in comparison to the horses that worked the same distances
Fast
that day.
compared to the horses that finished behind. I mean, the 10th out of 110. I wouldn't use the word fast. The works have been okay.
On par
Okay.
with
They've
the
been
horses
okay.
that have run
Fast is a bit of a,
Well, when you are third best of whoever, or you are
I don't
third
know.
best of 30,
Who was
or
fourth and fifth? My real problem is without seeing workouts or reading workout reports, I just don't care what the
Okay.
times are for the most part.
I think if you're consistently ranking above several other horses and you haven't run yet, I do pay attention to it. But you're right that we never know how they're being ridden to attain that time.
But I don't think Dave Donk's a guy that's normally cranking him up. He's a damn guy who can win with first-time starters. But when he wins with firsters, it means they're just sort of ready to run, and more so than anything else. It's Tiz the Law, who's been terrific.
And the dam won first time out, have to miss Lau, and I just thought that a lot of the interesting types were more towards the outside, and obviously with scratches they do come in a little bit more into the field, but this was the firster that I wanted at a price.
She's bred to do well if she's claimed by Dennis Lallman. I've got her in there as well, so I obviously saw the same things that you saw. So I'm not, in no way am I disagreeing with you. I think this horse is very, very interesting. The other thing is, they're going to jump all over the Chad Brown first.
Oh, yeah.
And Highway Star is very good, but it's a second
First
foal. The
foal
first one
was
couldn't
not.
outrun you and I in a horse suit. Now, she was terrific, and there's a terrific family line, and Chester Broman, getting back to this horse. So I do think she's obviously dangerous, but it's the Chad Brown factor. She has to be short, and I'm going to jump on the Bill Morey bandwagon. I don't know.
After
The
Sundays with
horses
Sandy.
have to, one of your favorite horses, Sunday with Sandy's, a turf horse and 3 horses that couldn't outrun you and I. I'm guessing with Bill Morey, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, this horse has some pedigree coming in relative to the rest of this field, and I agree. With the Chad Brown horse, one foal that didn't do any running is not an indictment
No.
completely on the family, but it's not a good sign for the price that this one is going to be.
Yeah. Truly Magic, I think, is a little bit dangerous. Now, I don't know if she's good enough to win on those 50-plus buyers she ran, but that's probably a figure that Andy should review last time out. I know that, it's legitimate sort of, perhaps, but I don't know. You look at Juliana's Dream, who scratched. She ran a 54, and they've got her with a 43. Army Gal's a horse that I liked on a day that we canceled because I feel that race might actually be 20 points higher than it looks, and she was going to be under bet. So I think she's a little bit better than people might think. I didn't put her in there, but I do think that she's worthy of mentioning that last race is better than it looks. First-time starters, horses with experience. And listen, even Linda with 2 firsters, though you don't expect to see her with Abner Adorno and Carol Cedeno riding her horses, but maybe by the time she entered, everybody else had commitments.
Potentially, and it's a little bit more turf for the 8 Rare Society, but certainly both of them have some
dirt.
interesting things about them.
She's an awesome check, who is this one's a Barry Schwartz homebred, right? Yes.
Yep.
All right, Sarah, thanks so much. We got to go. Head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, no better time than present. Use the promo code BONUS200 and we'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. Check out track stats when you're at Naira Bets. Also, 15,931 in the carry over the pick 6. And we're on TV 2 to 5:30 today on FS2, covering here and Tampa as well. Thanks again, Sarah. Chris Griffin's up next with a reprise of the Scratches and Changes. Have a great day.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Aqueduct. At this time, we ask that you please rise, remove your caps as we honor America with the playing of the national anthem. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the New York Racing Association and live racing here at Aqueduct. 10 races on today's card. Carry over in the pick 6. That'll start in race number 5 with 10 races on the program. The track is rated fast. Note the adjusted post time there, 12:45. First post, 28 minutes till race 1. And here are today's scratches and changes. Race 1, start of that early pick 5. Post time again, 12:45. Race 1 is clear. Race 2, start of the early pick 4. Post time, just to 1:13. Scratch the 5. Obstinate. Race number 3, scratch the 2. Catchphrase. Scratch the 4. Patricia Ann. Race 4, start of the middle pick 4. Scratch the 6. Dat Dares Right. Scratch the 8. She's Cool. Race 5, pick 6 carryover is $15,931. Scratch the 7, Conniving. Scratch the 8, King of the Gods. Pick 6 carryover starts in race 5. Race 6, start of late pick 5. Scratch the 4, Melt With You. Scratch the 8, Blame It On Daddy. Race 7, start of the late pick 4. Post time will be 3:43. Scratch the 3, Irish Jackson. Scratch the 7, Bedtime Story. Scratch the 8, Fellini. Race 8, post time will be 4:13. And the 4 will run with no front shoes again. Race 9, post time will be 4:44. Scratch the 1A, Stronzino. Scratch the 9, Aerospeed. Race 10, post time will be 5:15. Scratch the 2, Will of a Woman. Scratch the 6, Juliana's Dream. Scratch the 10, Other People's Money. Scratch the 15, Kalisa. 10 races on today's card. Track is fast. Early pick 5 is coming up. First post, 12:45. Field of 7 in race 1, going a mile and an eighth. Early pick 5, race 1, 10 races, and that pick 6 carryover, $15,931 starts in today's 5th race. Race 5, start of the pick 6, races 5 through 10, get involved in the pick 6 with a carryover, $15,931 here at Aqueduct. The track is fast, 10 races, pick 6 carryover. It's next. Good luck.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. with Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.